It's hard to believe, but a hidden crisis is unfolding in Alabama. The ground is cracking open without warning, roads buckling, yards sinking, and homes collapsing into the earth.
It's happened again. A week after it was filled in, a sinkhole in St. Clair County returns.
Yeah, we first told you about this last Monday. That's when we saw the sinkhole. This was before and after.
It's hard to believe, but a crisis is now unfolding beneath one of America's most overlooked states. Across Alabama, the ground is splitting open. Suddenly, violently, and without any warning. Yards collapse overnight, roads buckle, forest floors fall away like trapdoors. Homes that have stood for generations are sinking into the earth as though swallowed by something alive beneath the soil. And scientists are deeply concerned, because these aren't ordinary sinkholes. For decades, Alabama's limestone bedrock has quietly dissolved under the surface, carved by rivers of groundwater flowing through ancient underground cave systems. But now, something has changed. Satellite data from NASA's Earth Observatory shows rapid subsidence across multiple counties, with the ground sinking at rates never recorded before. Monitoring wells reveal drastically falling water tables, disappearing aquifers, and underground voids expanding faster than communities can map them. Entire landscapes are destabilizing, silently, until the moment they collapse. Experts call this invisible erosion, a disaster you can't see coming until the floor opens beneath your feet. So the question haunting scientists is chillingly simple. What is happening under Alabama, and why is it accelerating now? Stay with this video, because the deeper we go, the more unsettling the truth becomes. Chapter 1. The cracks beneath the surface. Alabama's hidden Undercity. What if the ground beneath your feet wasn't solid at all? Unknown to many, Alabama sits atop one of the largest cave networks in the United States. A labyrinth of tunnels, rivers, caverns, and chambers stretching for miles below the surface. For centuries, these caverns remain stable, held together by pressure, groundwater, and geological balance. But today, that balance is collapsing. USGS seismic sensors have recorded micro-tremors, tiny quakes caused not by tectonics, but by underground ceilings failing under their own weight. Each tremor is the sound of the earth breaking below. Even more alarming, these collapses are happening in clusters, suggesting a linked structural failure, like dominoes falling underground. To the naked eye, Alabama looks unchanged. Forests rolling, pastures stretching wide, neighborhoods quiet. But beneath them, cavities are widening, ceilings are thinning, pressure is building, and no one knows where the next collapse will be. So residents live with a new reality. The ground may simply disappear. Chapter 2. The day the earth opened. Sudden collapse events. For most people, the disaster gives no warning at all. It arrives in silence. One moment the ground is familiar, stable, trusted, and the next it simply isn't there anymore. In Greene County, a family walked into their backyard and found nothing where grass had been hours before. Just a yawning pit, deep enough to swallow a school bus without leaving a trace. In Coleman, a rancher stood helpless as the pasture opened beneath his herd, the earth folding in on itself with a sound like distant thunder. And in Madison County, an entire intersection vanished in broad daylight, while traffic rolled past only seconds earlier, drivers unaware of how close they came to falling into darkness. There is no pattern to these collapses, no tremor to warn residents, no sign the land is preparing to give way. The drops are instant, violent, final. When geologists examined the aftermath, they found something unsettling. The soil wasn't just weak, it had been emptied. The water that once filled the cracks, the pores, the veins of the earth has vanished. Aquifers that held up entire landscapes have drained away, reversing direction underground, slipping into deeper channels or disappearing entirely. What remains is empty space, cavern air, darkness where support should have been. The towns and fields above are not resting on solid ground. They are suspended, unknowingly, over hollow rooms of stone. The danger is no longer a distant possibility. It is already beneath people's homes, their farms, their schools, and it grows each day, quiet and invisible, like the slow inhale before something falls. So now, the fear is not about whether the land will open again, it's about when, and who will be standing on it when it does.
Chapter 3. The Trigger. The water that vanished. What if the cause isn't just geology, but something we did? For years, Alabama quietly drew water from the ground to grow crops, to feed industry, to keep entire communities running. At the same time, the heat rose, rain fell less, rivers were redirected, reservoirs expanded. Bit by bit, the very water that once held the ground together was being pulled away, faster than nature could replace it. And no one noticed until the land began to fall. The groundwater wasn't just water, it was architecture. It was the invisible scaffolding holding everything above it in place. It filled the ancient caverns and cracks, pushing outward, supporting ceilings of limestone that had stood firm for thousands of years. But now that support is gone. The stone has been left hollow, brittle, silently waiting for the moment weight overcomes strength. Underground, enormous caves are collapsing. Ceilings are failing. The earth is shrugging inward. And when it breaks instantly. USGS hydrologists warn that once this process begins, it cannot be undone. The aquifers will not refill. The caves will not rebuild. The land will not rise again. This is not erosion. This is not weather. This is a permanent rewiring of the land itself. The ground in Alabama is not simply sinking, it is giving up. So the question that hangs over the state now is no longer, will more sinkholes form? No, that future is already written. The real question is far more chilling. Where will the next one open? And who or what will be standing on it when it does?
Chapter 4. The chain reaction, when the land begins to move as one. What if the sinkholes aren't isolated accidents, but symptoms of something much larger waking beneath Alabama? At first, each collapse seemed like its own tragedy, a local anomaly. A yard here, a pasture there, a road swallowed in a sudden roar of breaking earth. But when scientists overlaid the events on satellite deformation maps, the pattern became impossible to ignore. The ground isn't just sinking, it's shifting. A subtle but measurable wave of subsidence is crawling across the state. Slow, persistent, unstoppable. Entire regions are lowering by millimeters each month, spreading like a bruise beneath the soil. And where that downward movement accelerates, the collapses follow. This is not random. This is a system unraveling from within. Deep underground, ancient caverns are connected like chambers in a massive, forgotten cathedral. When one ceiling fails, the stress transfers to the next. And when that fails, the pressure shifts again. The collapses are traveling, moving, searching for the next weak point. The land is no longer stable. It is reacting, responding, echoing its own destruction. Residents describe faint rumbling on quiet nights. Not earthquakes, but something stranger. A hollowness beneath their footsteps. A vibration with no sound. A feeling that the ground is breathing, expanding, contracting, preparing. Local authorities fill the holes, patch the roads, fence off the craters, but the earth simply opens again somewhere else. Every repair is temporary. Every fix is borrowed time. Because this isn't a surface problem. The collapse is coming from below. The ground is behaving like a sheet of paper held over fire, weakening invisibly, until the tear comes all at once. So the question is no longer scientific. It is personal. If the land beneath Alabama is failing in connected chains, how far will the chain run? And when it reaches the cities, who will be ready?
Chapter 5. The towns in the crosshairs.
It's one thing when sinkholes open in fields, forests, and pastures. It's another when they begin moving towards the places where people live. And that is exactly what's happening now. The same subsurface map that once showed rural collapse zones is now expanding towards city limits. Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Huntsville, Montgomery. All of them sit above the same honeycomb of ancient limestone,
the same thinning aquifers, the same hidden voids. Subdivision developers never imagined the ground could simply disappear. Schools were built over karst, highways laid across hollow corridors. Entire neighborhoods rest on terrain that was never meant to carry this weight. And now, the land beneath them is changing. In certain streets, the pavement has begun to ripple, not crack, but bend. Manhole covers now sit lower than the pavement around them. Foundations are shifting millimeters at a time. Doors no longer close square. Residents report walls that seem to breathe on hot days, as though the houses are adjusting themselves around something unseen. People are noticing, but they don't yet understand what they're seeing. They think it's settling. They think it's age. They think it's weather. And then one morning, the earth opens. A neighbor's yard is gone. A streetlight stands in a crater. A home splits cleanly in two, not shattered, but lowered, like it simply sank into another world. Officials warn residents to remain calm, but you cannot calm someone who discovers the ground they trust is a memory. Because once a town is identified as a collapse zone, there is no reversing it. Insurance won't cover it. Repair crews can't fix it, and the land never comes back. So now the questions are changing. Not what caused this, not can we stop it, but how far will it spread, and which town will vanish next?
Chapter 6. The event that changes everything. There is always one moment when the quiet crisis becomes undeniable, when the slow disaster suddenly steps into daylight. For Alabama, that moment came without warning. It began like any ordinary morning. Cars moved, schools opened, the air was still. And then, in a town that had seen no signs, no tremors, no warnings at all, the earth gave way beneath the center of town. Not a hole, not a crack, something far worse. The ground dipped, then collapsed in a single fluid motion, as if the soil itself had liquefied. A parking lot folded into the earth like paper. Street lamps toppled inward. Windows shattered from the shockwave of air rushing down into the void. Within seconds, an entire block had vanished into a cavern no one knew existed. And the world watched. Phones were recording. News crews arrived. Helicopters circled overhead. This was no longer a rural incident. No longer something you could ignore. This was a city, swallowed. Scientists had warned of this possibility for years, but no one imagined how fast it would happen, how sudden, how final, how absolute. There was no time to evacuate, no time to predict, no time to react. The collapse didn't just destroy buildings, it shattered the illusion of safety, because now everyone understood the truth. If the ground can open there, it can open anywhere. In living rooms, people watched the footage with the same sinking realization. The disaster is no longer underground. It is here. It is visible. It is real. And the silence that follows is worse than the collapse itself, because now the entire state waits for the next sound. The deep, hollow snap of the earth letting go. Chapter 7. The Irreversible Future. Once, Alabama's landscape felt eternal. Hills steady, forests rooted, neighborhoods resting on ground that seemed unshakable. But now that confidence is gone. The collapse in the city didn't just leave a crater, it left a truth that people can feel in their bones. The land is no longer guaranteed. In the days that followed the event, scientists rushed to explain what was happening. Press conferences, interviews, emergency reports, but their words carried a weight no one wanted to hear. This is not a temporary crisis. This is not something we can fill, patch, or reinforce. This is not something that will get better when the weather changes. The collapse is structural, deep, rooted in the Earth's bones. And once the underground support is gone, it is gone forever. Some neighborhoods now live with the sound of ground sensors beeping through the night. Some highways have been rerouted, not because they are broken yet, but because they will be. Satellite imagery updates daily,
tracking the land as it sags, stretches, rearranges itself. People still try to live normally. Children still play outside. Cars still roll over pavements that may not be there next season. But there is a quiet fear now, a new awareness that the surface of the world is thinner than anyone ever believed. The real question no longer comes from scientists. It comes from the people who live there. If the earth can open anywhere, how do you know where to stand? And that's the truth no one can answer. Not the researchers, not the government, not the maps, not the instruments. The ground is shifting. The caverns are breaking. The collapse is already underway. The only thing no one knows is how far it will spread, and how much of Alabama will still be standing when it stops.
Chapter 8. The Silence Below. There is a moment in every unfolding disaster when the world goes quiet. Not because the danger has passed, but because the land has reached a point where there is nothing left to warn us with. And that moment appears to be arriving in Alabama. Sensors that once recorded slow, groaning shifts in the earth are beginning to go still. The micro-tremors have faded. The long echoes through the underground chambers have gone silent. To the untrained observer, this looks like stability. But to geologists, silence is the most ominous sign of all. It means the caverns are no longer stretching. They are no longer adjusting. They are finished adjusting. The stress has reached equilibrium. Not because the danger has passed, but because the support has already failed. The earth is holding its breath. Residents describe the silence in unsettling ways. Too still, too heavy, like the world is waiting for something. Even animals sense it. Dogs refuse to walk certain yards. Horses pull away from the soil. Wildlife changes its trails. Instinct whispers what science confirms. The collapse does not need to spread fast to be catastrophic. It only needs to spread once more, in the wrong direction. What's forming beneath Alabama is not a series of holes. It is a system, connected, continuous, and fragile. One break could trigger another, and another, and another, until the land shifts as one. So now, people live not in fear of noise, but in fear of quiet, because it is in the quiet that the ground gives up. And when it does, there will be no warning at all.
Chapter 9. The line that cannot be crossed. There is a point, a final threshold, where the land can no longer support the weight of what rests above it. And Alabama is approaching that point faster than anyone expected. Cities are built on assumptions that the ground stays flat, that foundations stay level, that the world beneath us stays still. But those assumptions are now breaking. Structural engineers examining the collapse zones have reached a devastating conclusion. If the underground ceilings continue to thin even a little more, entire districts could become uninhabitable. Not someday, not in theory, but in the very near future. Homes could be abandoned, schools relocated, highways rerouted permanently, towns erased from the map, not by fire, flood, or storm, but by the silent failure of the ground itself. And there is no blueprint for rebuilding land that no longer exists. No machine can fill caverns that run for miles. No construction design can anchor foundations to air. No government plan can stop hollow earth from sinking. This is not a disaster that destroys buildings. This is a disaster that removes the place where buildings can exist at all. So now the question facing Alabama is not geological, it is existential. What do you do when the land beneath your life is disappearing? Do you reinforce? Do you relocate? Do you wait and hope you are not on the next failing ground? Or do you accept the unthinkable truth? The earth is changing, and Alabama must change with it. This story isn't just about sinkholes. It's about the ground we trust, the land we build on, and the belief that the earth beneath us will always stay still. Alabama has shown us that this belief can break without warning. And while this may be happening in one state today, the same geological conditions stretch across the entire Southeast. Tennessee, Georgia, Mississippi, Florida, Kentucky. No one is as safe as they think. So if you want to stay ahead, if you want updates before the headlines break, Don't wait until the next collapse makes the news. Subscribe now. Turn on notifications. Stay informed, stay alert, stay aware. Because once the ground gives way, there is no time to prepare. Subscribe and follow for ongoing updates as this situation develops. And let me know in the comments below, do you live in one of these risk zones? Have you noticed signs? Cracks, shifting soil, tilting floors, sinking yards? Your comment may help someone else see the warning beneath their feet.